If you've ever walked out of class thinking, I tried really hard, and I just don't understand what went wrong, this video is for you. See, most dancers aren't struggling because they're lazy, not talented, or not committed enough. They're struggling because ballet uses a lot of shorthand, corrections that sound important, but don't actually explain what you're meant to do. So I asked dancers to comment the corrections that they hear all the time, but don't fully understand. And the same ones came up again and again and again. So today I'm going to read 10 real corrections that dancers hear in class all the time, explain what teachers are usually reacting to, what's actually going wrong, and how to implement the correct practice. If you're ready, let's dive in. Counting down from 10, we have number 10. Lower your shoulders. Or, in case you've heard it, put your shoulders down. People are confused about what to do when their teacher tells them to put their shoulders down. Here's the issue though. Lower your shoulders isn't actually a movement goal. Many dancers hear this and they start to press their shoulders down. Tension becomes the focus, and their jaw and their shoulders and their neck all lock up, and their arms become disconnected because of how much pressure they're putting in this area of their body. When the trapezius is tensed, it causes you to shrug and your shoulders to elevate. So here's a cue you can think of the next time your teacher says, keep your shoulders down. Instead of shoulders down, think neck relaxed and lengthened. If you're getting into this position, it's probably because you've tensed your neck and you actually need to relax your neck to allow the shoulder to lower. This also becomes very important because the more elevated your shoulders are, the tenser your neck is, the harder it is to turn your head, which is going to make your head disconnected from your arms and spotting in pirouettes extremely difficult. That being said, as we get tense, if I'm going to turn, what tends to happen is we go up this way to try and connect the lift, and instead we need to be thinking, create distance between the collarbone and the chin or the ears. So the next time your teacher says lower your shoulders, think long, relaxed neck, and that will help to fix the problem. Moving on to correction number 9, drop your tailbone. This one causes so much confusion. I mean, like, can I just take my tailbone and put it on the floor? Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Drop my tailbone? What does that even mean? Many dancers will often translate this as, I need to tuck so that my tailbone is almost underneath my pelvis. Problem is, a tucked pelvis is going to limit rotation, thrust your knees forward, cause pronation in your feet, and generally put you in an unsafe position. You see, your pelvis isn't meant to be frozen in one place. It has to move, it has to shift, it needs to be free, but not so free that we're constantly seeing unchecked extension in the low back when the tailbone is pointing out that way. For the sake of demonstration, let's imagine that this flashlight is your tailbone. I'm going to turn off the lights and see if I can make this point work. So if I imagine that this is my tailbone and the light is pointing down, if I do a plie, we want that light to go straight down. If I tuck, my light's going to come to the front. And if I tilt in the other direction, my light's going to go to the back. When we're doing a plie and your teacher says tailbone under or tailbone pointing down, really what we're trying to think is we want that energy of the pelvis to be going straight down, not to the back, and not overly tucked so that it's coming out to the front. If your pelvis is feeling heavy, jammed, or stuck while you're dancing, you're probably overcorrecting and either tucking or tilting in the opposite direction. Correction number 8, use your back, especially in turns. Which part of my back? Should I be using my upper back, my lower back? Should I be using my quadratus lumborum? Should I be using my erector spinae? What about my rhomboids or my scapula? Should I be connecting my lats? What am I doing? This correction is frustrating because it simplifies a complex movement system, but also is incomplete. Most dancers end up squeezing their shoulder blades together, retracting their scapula, which is going to put them in this kind of strange position and also tense the neck, causing what we had for correction number 10 of the shoulders going up. Turning needs control of our stability through rotation. It needs support in your lats, one of the largest muscles in the back. It needs coordination of your obliques, but not pinched scapulae. Here's a way that you can think about it. If you turn to face your bar and place your arms in a first position so your wrists are on the bar, as you do that, what you're going to do is press down, and it's going to feel a connection in this part of your back right here. That will give you the stability that you need in your upper body to help you during your turns so that you're not going this way, rounding the arms, or squeezing your shoulder blades together and making everything stiff. Instead of thinking just tense, think connect the pressure down with the arms resting on something while your sternum pulls up and away in the opposite direction. This will help you to feel your back as well as other parts of your core and allow you to stabilize in your turns without falling over or losing the connection that your teachers are asking you to find. Number 7, don't sit, sit more. Don't sit, sit more. This commenter had a very confusing correction because the teacher wanted him to not sit, but then also to get into their legs more at other times. And obviously, that would make everyone confused. Sitting can be used to describe how our hip is being placed on our standing leg. It can also be used to describe whether we're getting to the base of a grand plie and just dropping to the base and not holding ourselves. Sometimes we also use it when, for example, we want them to stay in a plie a little bit longer to create more force for a jump. So how do we look at this correction? It's really going to depend on how your teacher is using it and in what circumstance you're receiving the correction. If, for example, you're doing a tendu to the side and you're dropping into that hip, internally rotating the standing leg and sitting that way, potentially that's a problem. What we want to do is start from rotation, rotate the standing leg as much as possible, create lift through the hip socket, and then imagine that our energy is going in 2 directions, pulling up through the top of the body and rotating down into the floor in the opposite direction. If you're going into a grand plie and you're getting down to the bottom and dropping down here like this, don't do that because that's going too far. It's not continuing to keep your legs engaged to strengthen and support your plie. Instead, stop around here so that you can push your heels back down and return out of the grand plie. It's not about dropping to the end range of the movement. It's going to a point that you can support and return from. And if you're being asked to sit for longer in your plie, maybe before a jump, maybe during a turn, where like, for example, a fouette, where you have to stay on the ground a little bit longer before starting that turn again, potentially what you need to do is hold in that position, not drop, but hold at a point that you can control so that you can then come back out of it, but hold for a second longer than you feel so that you can engage the power in your legs to return into the next move. Really, sitting or not sitting is all about how you're engaging your legs, whether you're supporting your turnout, whether you're supporting your plie, or whether you're using the energy of your plie to then help you to get back out of that movement to do something else. Number 6, hyperextension confusion. Hyperextended dancers often get corrections that are aimed at dancers that have joints that don't extend past their actual endpoint. For example, closing to 5th position without letting the knee soften, or not sinking back into the heel, when in reality, they actually just need to work on rotation and stabilizing their knee. Some teachers will even go to the opposite extreme where they want dancers to stand with their heels so far apart that their knees aren't engaged. They're just locked into the end of the joint. See, here's the thing. We don't want to have bent knees, but we also don't want to be at the end range of that joint because it could cause problems. So the challenge is finding a place that you can work where you're not going into the full extension of your joint, but also you're connecting and making sure that you're not bending your knees to try and counter the hyperextension. This one gets really challenging because for a lot of hypermobile dancers, their proprioception isn't there completely the same way it would be for someone who's not hypermobile. And so the challenge becomes, how do I feel what's overextended, what's underextended, and what is safe? Here's where the nuance lies. You're going to have to use a mirror or some sort of outside input to help you understand where your point of extension is. I suggest finding a camera that you can record yourself with and video yourself dancing so you can see, are you underextending or overextending to a point of lack of safety? Look for the alignments that are closest to the aesthetic you're trying to achieve without removing stability, and understand that when you're working with hyperextension or hypermobility, it's a case-by-case situation because everyone's range is different, and we're going to need to find specifically for you the individual way that you have to work. If you have any more questions about hypermobility, I did a video specifically on that, which I will put in the card right up here to help you with your hypermobile range. Number 5 on our countdown is close your rib cage. I don't know about you guys, but with the exception of these bottom ribs down here, most of these other ribs look pretty much fixed and closed. They're not going anywhere. They're not moving very much. Here's what close your ribs is actually referring to. If you're sticking your stomach out this way, so arching your low back, that's what's causing the image of an expanded rib cage, when in reality, we want to have this straight up and down line. Problem is, when we tell dancers to close their rib cage, dancers stop breathing, they clamp their ribs together, everything gets tense, and then their movement becomes stiff and stuck. What your teachers are really looking for is not for your rib cage to close, but for your posture to be stabilized from shoulders down through the ribs, all the way down through the hips and into the floor. So if you're finding yourself in this position, we need to engage your transverse abdominis, pull that together, pull the pelvis into neutral alignment, and make sure that our ribs are not flaring this way, but keeping a neutral position that we can then expand from or contract from. The neutral alignment of your ribs and your pelvis is all about giving you a blank slate that you can then expand or contract back into to allow your dancing to have movement. If you're already here, there's nowhere for you to go. And if you're too much this way, you're also stuck there. So we need to have this neutral position that allows us to expand and contract. And that starts by making sure everything is in one straight line, up and down from the pelvis up to the shoulders. One way that you can practice this is to place your hands on your ribs and breathe in, expanding your hands outwards instead of expanding your ribs forward and back. And then as you exhale, instead of sucking your stomach in, we want to make sure that it's almost like you're creating the tension through the diaphragm down into your core so that you're stabilized but not unable to breathe. If you're feeling like your ribs are stuck, go practice again, because this should create stability without limitation. Correction number 4, turn your heel. I can understand how if you're thinking, how do I turn my heel? And taking it very literally, you're going to get really confused. Here's where this correction comes from. Imagine you're standing in a parallel position like this, and you place your hands on your hips, and you want to rotate your legs. The rotation is going to start from the top up here. The deep rotators are rotating the femur in the socket, and it's causing your femur then to externally rotate or internally rotate as you relax. When you do that, you'll feel some pressure through your feet, creating torque down through the tibia into the ankle. So what we want to do is when we turn out, we're trying to reduce that tension in the ankles that you would feel in a parallel position by pulling the heel forward and then rotating so we're stabilizing from the top of the legs all the way down through the feet. You see, turnout doesn't come from your feet, it comes from your hips. And while we may say turn out your heels, it's really because we want your heels to come forward first, not toes back, so that we eliminate a pronated rolled in position like this. Telling our dancers to turn out their feet is actually going to cause tension and restriction in their legs. And so what we really want to do is start with this exercise of finding the rotation at the top and then pulling the heels forward independently and maximizing that rotation again from the top of the legs to create stability and support from the feet back up through the legs. It's a multi-chain system working up and down through your legs. The next time you hear turn out your heels, think, I'm going to rotate my hips, and that's going to bring my heels forward. And that will help you to understand this correction. Number 3, engage your core. Engage how? What do you mean engage your core? Everyone's core is engaged most of the time. It's a ridiculous correction, and it's actually not helping anybody. And can we talk about how just tensing your abdominals doesn't actually fix your balance? Go ahead, try it. Stand on one leg. Don't stabilize your standing leg. Don't think about proprioception through your feet. Just tense your abdominals and fall with really tense abdominals, because that's what's going to happen. You see, as soon as we tell our dancers to engage their core, they brace, they push down, they hold, and then their movement becomes small and weak. So what are we actually asking for when we talk about core engagement or utilizing the core to help with stability? We want a core that's active and responsive to the impulses that are, if I just brace, my arabesque is going to be very limited. Lifting my leg to the back actually requires an extension of the abdominals, not a contraction. Or if I'm trying to rotate my body, stiffening through my abdominals at the front is actually going to limit my ability to turn. So being able to rotate and free up and expand my core is actually where we want to be thinking. Instead of engage or contract or brace, think light connection that allows movement without wobble. One way to do this is to bend your knees, feel your pelvis kind of connecting down into your legs, and then shift your body side to side, forward to back rapidly. And you'll feel your abdominals start to connect as you do this. The point is, we need to be mobile and agile, and our body shift has to be consistent so that our core isn't holding us back, but it's supporting our spine as it rotates, moves, expands, contracts, extends, and bends to allow our dance to have freedom and movement. Engaging your core isn't about stiffening. It's about utilizing your abdominals to support the spine, to do the movement that it needs to create beautiful art. Number 2, don't grip your hips. My God, this one drives me crazy because it's rooted in old world ideology about how the body works. Oftentimes, you'll hear teachers say, when you do a développé to the front or to the side, to relax your hip flexors or not use your quadriceps. This is madness, guys, because your leg is literally flexing at the hip and your quadriceps have to engage to stretch your knees. But here's what happens. Sometimes when you go to extend your leg, instead of being able to fully extend the leg, the underside engages too much and causes it to look slightly bent and even shaky. So your quadriceps can't fully stretch your knee before your hamstrings try to actually bend it. Often this is coming because your hamstring is tight and your quadricep isn't strong enough. And so when you go to lift your leg, while you may be able to get it to a certain point, as you start to extend that leg, your hamstring tension is causing the knee to bend, and your quadricep is then trying to fight against your hamstring to extend the leg. This shakiness makes it look like your hip flexor and your quads are gripping because it's shaky and unstable, and the muscles tend to bulge a little bit more because what's happening is they're fighting against the opposite muscle group to make the leg extend. Here's a way to find how to engage the muscles correctly so that your leg is long, your feet are nicely pointed, your hips are free to do the job they have to do, your quadriceps are working to extend your knee, and your hamstrings aren't limiting that ability. Sit down on the floor and place a pool noodle underneath your knee. This is going to give you a feedback point at the back of your knee so you know how to stretch. Now, what you're going to do, flex your foot and try to lift your foot off the ground. What you'll feel is your quadricep engaging right up here to ensure that your leg can stretch. This is not about going into some unmanageable hyperextended range where you're pulling your foot off the ground. This is about feeling the connection of the back of the leg into your pool noodle so that you can engage the quadricep so that you're not stretching just by tensing the quadricep, but by allowing the leg to extend using the quadricep and lifting and reaching energy out through the leg. When your energy extends out, we go from that to that. So the next time your teacher tells you don't grip, think about whether your hamstring is stopping your quadricep from extending your knee, and then allow that hamstring to relax, or potentially even do this exercise to loosen your hamstrings before class. You're going to bend forward, place your hands on the ground, and alternate stretching one leg at a time. This neural hamstring glide will release the hamstring and allow your quadricep to do its job when your hip flexor is lifting the leg up to the front and the side. And our number one final correction that came up was spot faster. What does that even mean, spot faster? Like bring your head around faster? Because that's going to end up in a bad way. Here's what I think they meant. You actually have to focus your eyes faster. So instead of thinking, let your eyes kind of drift around in the turn, you have to bring your eyes back to the focus point as quickly as possible. And here's how we practice this. Put your hands onto your shoulders, turn a quarter turn, find a spot that you're going to refocus on, and whip your head around and refocus your eyes as fast as possible. It's not about faster head, it's not about faster spot. It's about faster eye focus so that you reconnect with the same point over and over and over again. Problem with this correction of spot faster, oftentimes dancers will think, oh, I have to get my head around, which is actually going to put the head in the wrong coordination with the body. Generally, this comes in with dancers who don't fully turn their head at the bar, and their head is going off in some diagonal direction, so they haven't learned how to engage that full extension of the neck in either direction, rotating from side to side. When it comes down to spotting, building up the coordination of being able to reconnect your eye focus is going to be super helpful. Plus, it'll make your turns work better because you won't be trying to refine your balance through a dizzy alignment in your upper body as you're turning. And bringing this back around, if your shoulders elevate because your trapezius is tight, your head's not going to turn very far, you're going to get limited in your spot, you're not going to get back around fast enough to create that eye focus, and your turns are going to look stiff and disconnected. So if you recognized any of these corrections that have been holding you back or that have been confusing you, you're not behind. You're just working inside a system that uses a lot of shorthand without explaining the mechanics underneath. You see, ballet works best when you understand what you're practicing and why, which is why I recommend taking one of these things I talked about today and focusing just on that for a week, only that, as you go through your classes. You might get other corrections, you might hear other things, but take whatever those corrections are and layer them into the thing that you're working on. If it's about turnout in your standing leg, if it's about pelvic alignment, if it's about scapula and trapezius connection, if it's about how you're holding your arms or how you're turning out, doesn't matter as long as you choose one thing to focus on that you can then over time stack new layers onto. And don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. Whether it's asking me in the comments or asking your teacher the next time you see them in class, getting them to dive a little bit deeper into the correction is something they would love to do. So head to your teacher, ask them to explain, and if you're confused or maybe too shy, write it in the comments down below and I'll do my best to help you as well. Because learning and experimenting is how your technique is going to build. And remember, practice for many years.